So when you were young, you found the violin as an escape or as a channel.
Wouldn't call it an escape. That was my expression, and it came relatively easy to me.
So now that you've kind of refound that little girl, what's your violin today?
Oh, that's a great question. So the violin actually got sold a number of years ago. However, it really fueled my being in the world and finding my voice in terms of, what I came here for. And it really has something to do with that vulnerability and bliss, because out of that, what opened up just last year, where I tapped into that vulnerability that I had not felt since I was a young woman. I thought I was all transformed and, just above it. No, a little exaggerated. But anyway, the rawness really threw me into a place where I got to see myself in my vulnerability, where I could tap further into what I call the feminine. The feminine that is vulnerable and open and flowing, unlike the masculine or the yang that is, that I had gotten very familiar with in building and running a business, competing, making money, being strong enough. This whole thing about proving myself came very much out of that yang energy, where you have to do something in order to, no matter what, in order to make money, in order to be accepted, to be approved, to be noticed, all of that. And now something beautiful has arisen with that vulnerable space being open within me. I can bring that further, to my work and to open that up for others. Because I think that is the place where the world will heal. I don't know if you're familiar with Brené Brown. She speaks about vulnerability and shame. And she has a talk on Netflix recently. And so she speaks about when she gets invited to leadership teams, they ask her, okay, we need you because our team needs more innovation and creativity. And, we are not making the income. We don't make the bottom line. However, we don't want you to speak about vulnerability. She said, then I'm not the right speaker for you. And, unless you tap into the vulnerable space, you won't have creativity and innovation.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, and specifically, we know you had an experience with your hysterectomy about a year ago. What do you do, and how was that experience last year? How has it changed what you do?
So I'm an intimacy and relationship coach, and my husband Fraser and I, we have had this institute called Tantra Nova in Chicago for the last 19 years. And even to do that work of tapping into the intimate space as a space that we can really bring forward. Most of us got or did not get introduced to or didn't have an education on how to create intimacy and love. We don't have a course in high school or college. And so when I was quite despaired about never potentially having lasting intimacy and love in my life, in my early 50s or late 40s, while I had a lot of, falling in love, I was very good at that. However, I did not know how to sustain, and also to cultivate it. So that put me on a path to do my own healing around my sexual, intimate, and love self. And it brought me to the tantric practice where the opportunity arises that we can reintegrate the sexual with the spiritual. And I did quite a bit of healing. And that was also the time when I deeply delved into meditation. And so what opened up recently is now taking me to a new place. There were a couple of things I discovered through the post-hysterectomy time, and then also recently, which had to do with, Elsbeth, it's time to take the message much, much to a bigger global community. Now, I'm used to teach small workshops, intimate, very personal, very apropos in terms of the work we do. And when Freddie said to me, years ago, oh, let's just have 50 people in a workshop, I said, no, darling, I don't want that, So it's really about now to step beyond myself, to have it no longer be, or my life no longer be about making money, looking good, being approved. It doesn't mean that I couldn't make money, but that is not the primary mode, for me to be alive and to contribute to this world. So what opened up through that is that I am now clear that I can, bring something forth that can make an effect to a lot bigger audience, really shifting from that misunderstanding between men and women as expressed in the Me Too movement, the Time is Up movement, which was an explosion of the blindnesses that exist between men and women. And so I call it to, shifting as far as relationship between men and women is concerned from a flat to a round world. If we consider, can I go on?
Yes, please.
If we consider being in the flat world in terms of the woman-man relationship, is that the flat world is based on a hierarchical system. Patriarchy is a hierarchical system. Matriarchy is a hierarchical system. So just flipping it around wouldn't change it. The new world, the round world, the opportunity that arises is what I called creating partnership relationships, which is the horizontal model. In the horizontal model, it's like one leads at some moment and then the other leads. It's like the infinity figure 8. So where the listening and the speaking, the receiving and the giving, the following and the leading, they are going back and forth, not like in the hierarchical model where that is fixed, where we cannot learn from each other because whoever is up doesn't have the capacity to listen to what is going on here. And without a new listening, we will not come together as men and women to really live in harmony and to co-create. And the co-creation then will allow us to solve, other problems in the world. But my mission is really to bring that shift about. And of course, I cannot do it alone. So the tribe is already showing up. But the shift from the flat world into the round world, where things are possible that are not possible in the flat world. So like going back to that 1400 example of where the astronomers identified that the world is round versus flat. They got incarcerated for that initially because it was so out of the Catholic Church conception. What I can do in the new world, in the round world, is I can sail around the world. I can get to learn about new countries, new peoples. It's not possible in the flat world. And what I'm opening up here, shifting from a hierarchical to a horizontal relational model that is simultaneously connected with a sexual spiritual integration within and then between men and women. So I call it a holographic opportunity. It's not linear, it's not just two-dimensional. All these two axes, they all interact. The feminine with the sexual, the masculine with the sexual with the spiritual with the feminine. It's actually then more like an orb. And that is the world that we want to learn about.
So it's not every day to use the word spiritual and sexual in the same sentence, and the fact that you're talking about healing the world, absolutely beautiful. And we're also producing a much longer theorem on her theories, so stay tuned for that. But one last question, the famous proof question. So in 3 words, what is your meaning of life?
Making a contribution.
Making a contribution.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen,